Do 27 different versions of a bark.
Can we hear it?
Yes. I do a really good dog.
Hello everybody, welcome to That's a Wrap Season 2, Episode 2. Today I have Felicity Jurd and Dakota Love will be coming on later, and we're going to talk about all of the things Felicity does, which are voiceover, acting, voiceover coaching, acting coaching, dialect coaching, dramaturgy. She's also been an assistant director, an assistant stage manager. She's done sound operating, lighting. This is testing my lighting operating. And she's also done choreography. And she recently, just earlier today, was at a dance class. She's still doing some dance.
Oh, I am. I am.
What did I miss?
Not much. I did produce as well.
Producing.
I used to produce independent theatre.
Wow.
And I have produced a couple of short films. And I've directed projects as well. But yeah, mostly I like supporting the actor's performance and the actor's journey. So most of my craft work is about supporting the performer. It's probably the best summary. But yes, it's a long slashy list, isn't it?
Yes.
Some people have, actor, model, writer, or something cool like producer, writer, director. I've got
every
jobs, lots of jobs. Yeah, I mean, I did actually genuinely work as a stage manager for a while and as an assistant stage manager, and I got paid for those. And in the UK, if you work as an assistant stage manager, it's actually a bonus. You sometimes get an understudy role. So I was able to understudy a show on the West End because of my stage management skills. That wouldn't happen in Australia. It's something specific to the UK. So for me in London, it meant that I got stage time and performance time and understudied 4 different acting roles. And I did go on. I went on twice for 2 different roles. And that was an amazing experience to a completely full house. So, and that wouldn't have happened had I not been prepared to do assistant stage managing work. And I wouldn't have got that job had I not already done assistant directing work, producing work, assistant producing work.
Yeah, right. Just
lighting
all of the
and sound
different
operation.
connections.
Because also as an assistant stage manager, normally you've got to, I had to do all the wardrobe, I had to do the wigs, I had to do the laundry, I had to do the sweeping, I had to do the stage set. So do you know what I mean? There's lots of things that you've got to do as an assistant stage manager. People go, oh, are you calling the show or are you just responding to calls on the show? But no, depending on the show, you're sometimes also operating sound and lights as well. Sometimes I've just been hired just as a lighting operator. So I did that in New York. I actually got a job as a follow spot operator in New York.
Wow. And
I turned it down because I'm only 5'2". And when I went in to do they gave me the job and they said, come up and operate. And I came up and I reached it. And then I pulled it down. I'm quite strong, so it was fine. But then I thought, I can't see what I'm doing. So I was like, thank you so much for the interview. I really appreciate your time. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this job. He was very nice. He really wanted to give me the job. But no, I couldn't take it because I was too short. If you think about it, I mean, all of those jobs that I was doing, lighting operating, sound operating, assistant directing, did a lot of sort of text-based dramaturgy, a lot of that work was all really about supporting the actor. It was about supporting the performance or supporting the overall, like being a part of the team, the big family that is the theatre world. And so for me, I've always loved that idea of being able to create something as a group and to be part of that. You might only be a small part of that, but to be part of that unit that's creating something really special. Yeah. So yeah, that's me. I love it's my team sport, I never really played netball.
No.
I appreciated other people that did. I just didn't get into it. I did ballet, ballet was my thing, and ballet was on at the same time.
That doesn't feel, obviously it's a team sport, you're doing a dance, but when you're by yourself and it's just the technique. That's
right. Yeah. Although I did love dance concert the most. So dance concert was my favourite time of year because, you've got the costumes, I used to help everyone with quick changes backstage, all the hooks and eyes for, so that was always very fun, and coaching little kids, little tiny tots and stuff. So yeah, my life was very much always about, not about me being on stage, but always about me being a part of this creation of either theatre or dance, and that's my happy spot.
Yeah, that's such a good way to look at it, because then you can take so many different kinds of jobs, and I feel like it's easier to get work because you have such a variety of options of the work. I don't know, is it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have been criticised. I've got to say, I've had a lot of people along the way saying, how are you marketing yourself? And I used to think, well, I'm an actor. That's it. I'm an actor. I'm a trained actor, and I take whatever job I need to take. And so for me, it was never a question about needing to market myself or I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to market myself as a lighting operator. Let's just be clear about that. I'm not. Don't worry, anyone out there that's a lighting operator. Your job is not in jeopardy. So, you know, I think let's be clear. It wasn't me trying to make my way in too many careers. It was me going, oh, I'm available. Did you want to do that? Sure, I'll do that. Or me actually being associated with different production companies. So that was kind of really how it started, is wanting to produce my own work with a group of friends. So we had a theatre company called Cheeky Monkey, and we did that for a number of years. And so that was one of the theatre companies. There were other companies as well. There was Mustard Seed as well, which was with some amazing actors. And so at different points, we just had to do what we could do to get the show on. So in order for me to direct Baby with the Bathwater, so I did the first Australian production of Baby with the Bathwater at Tap Gallery, and Tap Gallery had never had a show on before.
Oh, wow, okay.
My friend Laurie Fole, who's the most wonderful actress and director, she was producing and she found the space. She had the conversation with Leslie Dimmick. She organised it, and my boyfriend at the time, Dave, God bless him, he built us a lighting desk.
And wow,
yeah,
that's
because he was an electrical engineer. So Dave did that, and I was directing, and I couldn't afford to pay anyone to do anything extra because we had no budget. So then I became a lighting operator, sound operator, director, stage manager.
Okay.
So I did all of these roles initially because it just had to be done and someone had to do it and nobody was available. I've also done bookkeeping and accountancy for a lot of theatre companies. I don't do that anymore for anybody else. I just do it for myself because it became like I must start to focus a little bit less on helping other people and more on just you know, focus on your own craft, do some more classes, get better at what you do. Do you know what I mean? Rather than trying to spread myself too thin. So certainly when I was younger, I was very guilty of that. I was represented by this amazing agent who's no longer with us, Kevin Palmer, and he said to me, Felicity, don't just do a show because you want to do a show. Don't do it. You'll die early. And he said, it happened to somebody that I know. They just did too many shows for no reason and they're dead.
Wow.
Well, I was like, okay.
Case study.
But he was saying to me, don't just agree to do it. And at that time, that was a good piece of advice because I was literally just doing every show I could get my hands on and in any capacity, with no decision making as part of that. Right. Oh, I want to be in it. Oh, can I do costumes? Oh, you know, it's just this enthusiasm, this absolute drive and enthusiasm to be part of the production, which was great. I mean, it meant that I was very enthusiastic, but the drive was not necessarily directional.
Yeah, right.
It's a bit of a scattergun.
So Kevin staying in the car, but
Kevin, exactly. So Kevin was very good for me like that. And he said, you know, you've got to stop just doing every single show that comes across. And I was like, okay, this is good advice. And I started getting more specific. And so I would help other people produce shows, but I would also not do too many in a year. And then I would coach actors, but I would only coach actors for money. But then that, of course, I was always still doing free coaching on the side and was always being convinced to do. So, you know, there was a lot of free work through that as well. You all right?
No, I just had a moment.
I might have a moment in a minute. Yeah, so it's an interesting arrival from being passionate, driven and enthusiastic to just wanting to be a part of it and to then going, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? You know, so I got myself a regular little job and then just did auditions like lots of other actors.
So what shows recently have you coached?
For dialect coaching and voice coaching, I worked on Furiosa. So I coached Tom Burke, the amazing Tom Burke. Oh my goodness. He's just incredible. If you want to, if guys, if you're looking at an actor and you're thinking, who should I look up to Tom Burke. He works hard. He's modest. Noted. Oh, he's amazing. Does the homework. Just always a pleasure. Brilliant with everyone he works with. Just amazing. So anyway, I trained him for dialect because he wanted to do Australian. He's British. He born in England, in Kent. Oh, wow. So I did that. And then I worked also with the beautiful Charlie Fraser, who's a gorgeous First Nations supermodel.
Wow.
Yeah, she's amazing. And it was her first feature film role. So they had a whole team of people helping her. So I was one of many. But my job in that particular instance was to support her speaking voice. So her strength, her courage, her access to sound.
And is that because she hadn't acted before or just...
No, it was just because we wanted to give her that support. And, I mean, she had to do motorbike lessons and fight choreography.
Yeah, just everything and, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So...
huge. And did I say something about Disney? I don't know if you can talk about it.
Yes, I've also I've worked for Disney a few times. So I worked as an acting coach for the young Simbas and Nalas on Lion King.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. On
a theatre production.
Theatre production, yeah.
Yeah, so that was gorgeous. But that was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
I know. They're all, you know, nearly 30 now.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm joking. They're not 30, but it feels like they're 30. No, I remember when a couple of them turned 21 and I was like, what? They were teeny tiny when I trained them. But so yeah, I did that job for a year. So that was 8 shows a week plus rehearsals, and it was a really intense job and brilliant job. I loved working on it. It was very special. And the kids were just extraordinary, very, very talented and just... Yeah, it was a really, really special experience. I cried buckets when the show ended. Like when the final curtain came up for Circle of Life, I literally couldn't stop these stream of tears. It was just so intense.
Yeah. That would be me. I love Disney so much.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how beautiful that would have been.
It was very special.
Yeah.
I mean, the music, and it just so special, and the costumes. Every part of that production was just so superb. And then just recently I've done dialect coaching for... I don't want to say the actresses' names because I think sometimes I work on projects where if the production company hasn't listed it, I don't say anything.
Right.
There wasn't an NDA on it or anything like that. But yes, I've just finished, I'll just say European dialect coaching.
Okay.
So I've done 2 different European dialects for a new Disney show. One actress had 2 episodes, the other one had 8. So it was quite a lot of work, phonetic transcriptions and things.
Yeah.
And then I did another one. What was the other one? John Paulson directed a brand new TV series that's coming out, and I did some European dialect coaching for that, just for one actress.
Right, okay.
So I got to work with the incredible, gorgeous, charismatic, talented and very clever John Paulson. That was an experience.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I've done some really
you would
cool
work with. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, working with George Miller, I have to say, hands down, one of the best experiences of my career. Wow. Being in the sound studio and dissecting half a vowel and half a diphthong with George Miller, if I died tomorrow, I would die happy knowing that I got to do.
That's so cool. That's very cool. Well, wow. Okay, should we get Dakota on?
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay, everybody, welcome to part 2 of episode 2. We now have Dakota Love with us. She's a 3rd-year student at NIDA and also a singer. And do you identify with any other titles?
I kind of do a bit of everything, reckon. Probably cellist as well.
Wow.
That's right, you're a cellist. That is a big commitment.
Yeah, I think I've played since I was 7, kind of played all my life, and sort of how I've survived uni teaching cello. So
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. So Dakota knows Steph, who was in episode 1 of season 2, and that's how we kind of all connected. So it's all connected basically, and we're just going to have another chat today. We'll have a big chat with Felicity about everything in the acting world. Okay, so you've been coaching, that's a huge part of your life. What are you noticing about this generation, like around us of recent graduates and people currently in acting school, that might be different from other ages of people you've taught?
That's a really interesting question, because I think there are different generations and I think it can influence things. I'm Gen X, which is quite a while ago now. But I think one of the things I'm noticing is that we have become more immediate, that there's less patience for process. And I don't think that's anyone's fault. I'm not suggesting that that's a generational decision, for example. I don't think it's a social decision. I think it's come out of market forces and people being pressured for product and people being pressured for branding. And I'm not saying that those things don't count, by the way, because obviously they do, and there is magic in all of that, the way that you sell yourself and the way that you brand yourself, and understanding that, I guess, is a big part of business. So it's important. But the way that I was schooled, I mean, this probably make you laugh, Dakota. 1 black and white shot, chosen by your agent, no smile, matte background, for maybe 3 to 4 years. And you had to go to maybe 1 of 2 or 3 photographers in Sydney that did that style of photography. Now you've got colour, you've got 3/4. I know, look at your face, Jasmine.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I'm just thinking like now you try to do all the different styles of how, like the different looks and stuff.
Yeah, so when it comes to branding, I mean, literally the brand was there was no brand. That was the brand. The brand was black and white headshot, turtleneck, black and white, nothing fancy.
Sorry, turtleneck?
Oh, yeah, that was common.
I actually think that's really cool. I like a turtleneck.
No, I like it, but that everyone just kind of, that was the uniform of headshots.
Exactly. I remember my acting teacher saying, and don't wear a turtleneck, they're out. I remember when it changed. Don't wear the black turtleneck. But for a long time it was the black turtleneck or the black V-neck t-shirt or the black blouse, but it was black and white only, and don't go fancy with fabrics. And yeah, it was a different time. So, I mean, that's one example of where, I mean, that's probably just emblematic really of how little choice we had about how people saw us, but also how much more freedom we had about how people saw us, which I actually think is a shame. In some ways, the old ways are quite good in that sense that you're not locked in. And so it's about what someone else might see in you and what someone else might imagine when they look at you. That was the theory. Obviously, when people got pigeonholed, it was very hard to get out of that because you couldn't then go, oh, well, I'm going to get these new headshots done with this new photographer and I'm going to get a series of colours and I'm going to shave my hair. And, you never change your hair. I still to this day find it really difficult to change my hair colour or length. I've had the same hair colour and length for years, and it's because I grew up in the industry and you don't change your hair unless you're prepared to get new headshots done. Like, so there's things like that are ingrained in me that are very different. What is it like for you though, Dakota, like as a recent graduate, and also for you, Jasmine, because you graduated just recently? Yeah.
In December.
But it feels like yesterday, but it's actually quite a while now. How are you finding it?
I'm finding it nice, but also kind of like you said, you're just sort of taking whatever's around, and I think, I don't know, I feel ready to be here and ready to be in kind of just in the industry doing whatever comes about. Yeah, it's definitely a huge jump, I think, in personality, my own personality, from being an acting student to then being just a human in the world. I don't know. It was very different for me. I don't know about you if you've, Yeah,
I think I haven't graduated just yet, but yeah, with headshots and things like that, I don't know. I think they just want to, when we were kind of beginning that process, because your third year in training is much more industry focused, and the first 2 years were, development of technique and things like that. So I think it's kind of in my head now, but I guess at the end of the day, what they've told us is that you're the only you know what I mean? So if you are just being yourself, that's all you really can do, because, there'll be a million people that can, with blonde hair, blue eyes, that can go and do the job, but nobody else is Dakota. So if I'm just show up as myself, that's all that I can do. I think, that's what they said, even with it's so funny, the turtleneck and the I definitely think there's still a style, and I know that agents like specific styles of photography, but they were like, wear something that feels like you, that makes you feel good. And so I think it's like supportive in that kind of way. But it's also, you kind of are left with a million questions because there's not like a right answer, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing, is what's right for Dakota might not be right for Jasmine, and I could give the same piece of advice that's apparently the correct advice, and it doesn't necessarily work for someone. Well, I thought it was interesting what you said about wearing something that makes you comfortable. I think that's great advice. I think it's beautiful advice, and I do that now. But it's funny, I still think of all of my initial notes around photography when I was younger. It's sort of ingrained in me. How much individuality should I be showing here? It's interesting, isn't it? Just different perspectives on it.
I think as well with social media and stuff too, I feel like you get different types of people of different levels of branding. Like you were saying, you had a supermodel that you were working with versus someone that probably doesn't even use Instagram, and there's just like a whole range of that kind of thing as well, which I think now really comes into it. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I would go so far as to say some actors that I work with, it's their brand not to touch social media. Like I would say that for some actors, it's the quieter they can be in the background with their creativity, the better that they feel. And there are actors who do very well and don't have social media, so it is not essential. But I would also argue that it's very difficult if you don't have any kind of presence. I I've struggled with that too, because I kind of, initially social media was just about connecting with friends because I lived in London and I was trying to contact friends and family and get in contact with old friends from school. And so it was all of that initially for me. And then I suddenly realized my students had no context for any of my work. And so I needed to have some kind of, documentation that I'd actually worked, So then that became a thing. And now it's like, if it wasn't on social media, did it even happen? I do so many projects
That's really true.
Yeah. I mean, I did so many projects where I can't post anything about them. I've just finished shooting an episode of a TV show and I can't post anything because the storyline is all wrapped up in NDAs. And if I say anything, I will be, obviously it's very exciting to be part of something, but I don't want to mess it up for anyone. So I'm just not saying anything at all, and those are the great jobs. So how are you going? Because you've got a production coming up, don't you?
Yeah, in our final year, we do a whole lot of different things. So this is actually just a little side note, very cool. And it shows how small the industry is, like connected. But yeah, Felicity coached us earlier this year for our voice reels. And yeah, Jazz reached out and I was like, oh, Felicity. Like you just don't know when you'll next see someone. But that's a really cool thing. So yeah, throughout this year, we've done a bunch of different things. The next kind of big production we're doing is Stupid Fucking Bird. Yes. Which is a adaptation of a Chekhov play called The Seagull. And I'm playing Emma in that, which is a Cardinal in the original play. So we haven't actually started it yet, but I've just read it and kind of got initial thoughts. But yeah, I think the exciting part is when everyone comes together and starts like pulling the text apart and that sort of thing.
When's your first rehearsal?
Our first rehearsal, we haven't got a schedule yet, but it'll be after September or like mid-September.
You'll have to remind me. I want to come and see it.
Yeah.
I missed the July ones because I was away.
Yeah, we did. So I also sing, and my production season for that was Spelling Bee, 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
Fantastic.
Love that show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And if you haven't heard Dakota sing, you need to hear Dakota sing. She's beautiful.
Go on then, I haven't heard you.
Don't you hate it when people do that? Yeah. It's like when I used to teach dance, we'd be like, do the splits right now. And I'd be like, I'm not actually warm. And they're like, but you're not a real dancer. Show me the splits. And then I'd be like, okay, just a second.
And then you do it.
Yeah, and then I do it. It's true, like what you were saying before about being unique too. And we talked about that with voiceovers. I think that's changed as well. In the old days, it used to be more about showing your vocal agility and doing particular styles of promo. Now it's understanding that there's so much work in audio that grows across so many different genres that wouldn't have existed back when I originally trained in voiceovers. And now I'm like, okay, so what do you do? What are you interested in? And so we talked about that with you, didn't we? I mean, it would be probably helpful to share what we landed on, and sort of what you came up with. I think Dakota was brilliant in terms of addressing your interest in music and your ability to sing and your interest in, science and all sorts of other areas.
Yeah, that was a really cool process. I think when you think of a voice reel, what comes to mind is advertisement or commercial sort of work. And I definitely am interested in that. But what was really cool was Felicity encouraged us to think about the things that we were passionate about, and you actually do hear it in people's voices when they're talking about things. So I grew up, when I was in high school, I listened to the ABC radio, and one of my dream jobs throughout my life, I don't know if it still is on my bucket list, but at one point it was definitely to work for the radio, and they kind of announce the pieces and things like that. So I put a little radio segment on mine. I do Pilates. I love Pilates. So I put like an advertisement for a Pilates studio. What else did I do? Oh, I love Australian stuff. So we worked on a bit of Bluey.
Oh, I love Bluey.
And you did a little bit of Frozen too. Do you remember? You did the song.
Yeah, to put some...
just a small little
bit of singing,
a little sprinkle in there. Yeah. We weren't kind of going to brand it as a singing actor, but we just thought a little sprinkle that you could handle it, because there's a lot of jingles out there and things. And there was another track that you did. Do you remember you did a science track for me too? And suddenly we find that there's all of this documentary interest as well.
Yes.
Documentaries is a huge area of filmmaking that often rely on the narrator to carry the visual image.
Yeah, that's right. I had just watched Dune 2, and Florence Pugh does it's like the opening scene. It's this beautiful, the scenery is gorgeous, and she narrates the story. So there's a lot of there's so much voice work that you don't even realize, when you're, watching stuff.
I had a question for you, Jazz. So you mentioned that you've come out of drama school, you graduated, you're in the industry. You're doing this amazing podcast. Can I just say how much I love it?
Yeah.
Like when you asked me, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. It just has this kind of vibrancy about it, everything you do. Plus, can I say I love Book Nooks. I'm a huge fan. I'm actually fangirling.
Producing at
Are
the
you?
moment, yeah.
I watched the funny episode where Cameron's character, oh my God, I totally lost it laughing. And your acting in that is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really
That's
good.
so sweet. Yeah, it's fun writing for ourselves, I guess. It's interesting.
But
yeah.
I liked how original it was. So often when you see people doing stuff when they're creating their own work, it's just not quite, it's fine and it's good and it's lovely and I support a lot of people's work and I'm always supportive, like it's great, But for yours, there felt like something a little bit more sparky about it, a bit more quirky and it was a bit more unique and original. I loved it. And it's such an unexpected.
Yeah. It's pretty random, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally. I love it
when I explain it to people. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a web series, and they're like, oh, what's it about? I'm like, it's a mockumentary about a book club trying to win an award. Like, it's just really random.
It's almost. I mean, it's definitely got shades of shades of Schitt's Creek in there. Shades of what else? Flight of the Conchords. Like, there's got this kind of this sort of very offbeat humor, which is kind of delivered straight, which I love.
I love
So
that you
good.
love it. Yeah, we've got another one in the editing process, and then we're hoping to record 2 more.
Oh, really?
In a month or 2, yeah.
Oh, I will be the first person click and like on that on Instagram, and then I don't just click like. I will be watching it on my train ride on the way home.
No, thank you so much for that.
So my question was, like, how are you finding it now that you've graduated? You mentioned that it was kind of sometimes a little bit unclear, like, well, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. What I decided to do this year was just as much as I could and as many variations of things as I could. The podcast and the web series and just whatever theatre jobs. I'm assistant stage managing for Anna's play at the moment at the Seymour.
Are you?
Yeah, her Arlington.
So you're there every night?
Yeah, until the 24th.
It's getting 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Has Anna just been in today?
She was just in today, yeah.
Oh my God, I love Anna Houston.
Yeah.
She's sunshine. She's sunshine.
Absolute sunshine. Yeah, it's been so good to work with her
and so
and just
talented.
seeing everyone.
And you're getting to, and so you've been through the whole.
Yeah, I started, I think, midway through their rehearsals. So I got to go into the rehearsal room and just watch and things. And then I helped bump in and then tech. And I'm just at all the shows doing the behind the scenes, like props and stuff.
See, this is what I did. You know, I think it's great. I don't think you should ever not say yes to those opportunities because it's also building a relationship for the right reason. You know, a lot of people talk about relationship building, but I think relationships come out of trust. And turning up to a show every night and doing the props every night and supporting the actors every night, that's proper trust. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think rather than going to a bar and buying someone a glass of wine and asking them about their work, I mean, that's one form of networking, but I just never saw the point of that. It just always felt a bit manipulative to me. I just think that, is that really bad of me to say?
No, I don't think so. I think it just depends on
It depends on the individual.
The conversation is.
It depends on the individual. I never felt comfortable doing that. Yeah. I always wanted to have real relationships with a small r, you know what I mean? That relationship to text, relationship to the theatre and to the production company. But that's brilliant that you're doing that because Anna Houston, my God, every show she directs, it's a smash hit.
Insane. So, yeah.
She's insane. Yeah.
I'm very
There are so many
grateful to
good, talented directors, though, in Sydney at the moment, so many of them, and all of the shows are being really well reviewed. I mean, I can't pick a favourite because there's so many good ones.
They're also different as well.
Matt Lee, I worked with Matt Lee earlier this year. If you get a chance to work with Matt Lee, please do. He's gorgeous. He really understands how to generously and openly collaborate for solutions, and yet he's still also layering the comedy that he's directing at the same time. It's such a skill. He's beautiful. Yeah, so many great directors at the moment. But Anna, we love Anna.
We do. Yeah, so I guess the confusion in like kind of entering just came from just there's so much out there, like there's all the student work you can do and a lot of it's free work and like just kind of knowing where to put my time and also knowing that an opportunity could come up at any moment. So it's hard sometimes pre-scheduling things and then you wish you did the other thing but you don't know when it's going to come up but that's kind of the nature of this industry, I think.
That's hard, isn't it? Because you like commit yourself as an AD or an ASM on a project and then you're committed, but then you've got to turn down stuff. Yeah, that's hard. But that's, I think it's all, that's kind of goes back to that original question that you asked, which was around what do I see as one of the main differences? And I think what you're doing is actually very process oriented, which is actually about building relationships on longer term. You're thinking about the longer term. Yeah. Short term, there might be some losses. But I think long term, you're building a career and you're building those relationships with Anna and the rest of the crew. And that, do you know what I mean? You can't go wrong with, like a friend of mine once said to me, you can't go wrong. Like nothing is wasted. It might feel in that moment, and I couldn't go for that commercial or I couldn't go on that theatre tour. But then there's another path and there's always another path. And every moment there's another opportunity to make a different choice. But once you've committed to a project, you have to follow it through, I think. I do know people who leave productions halfway through and I don't think it's good for them. I don't mean, I'm not talking about like an attitude or a judgment about that person. I'm saying I don't think it's good for their soul because I think they then doubt themselves if they're pulling out or changing all the time,
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you know what you want to do in terms of post-graduating?
Yeah, I think I'm similar to both of you in that what I love is people and meeting new people, and I love theatre, and I love film, but I don't necessarily, I don't see myself in a specific role, so I don't know really what that will be. I think as long as it's around people and around arts community, I think I'll find it as I go along. It's a really exciting time, and I do love acting, but I think for me, I get like quite nervous sometimes, depending on what the project is. And like when we did the musical, for example, I just had a blast. It was so fun. I didn't have a care in the world, but then I'll do other things and I'll be so anxious about them. So I think, as long as I'm enjoying the thing that I'm doing, probably arts related. It's really exciting. Yeah, you just don't know kind of what can happen. Yeah.
Did you find, Felicity, when you graduated from training that you had a really specific dream or goal and then, do you know what I mean? Or were you always just kind of open, kind of like Dakota, to just whatever?
I think I did have a dream and a goal. I know I did. I just had so many of them. It's probably a little unrealistic.
That's how I feel at the moment.
I think I do remember, that's why I was asking you those questions, because I remember what it felt like when I graduated. I was only reflecting on it last week. I came back from New York because I trained at the Atlantic Theatre Company. Like what in God's name were you doing turning down? Like what? And I think there was something instilled in me in my training, which was, as much as it was about the dream, I felt like it was unrealistic. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have lofty goals, but I think there was a space in between there that I hadn't done the legwork. Now I'm the opposite. Now I'm like done so much legwork. It's unbelievable, but I don't see it. I don't see it. So when I get on set with these people who are so enormous, I'm sitting there going, do I deserve to be here? All sort of thing. And I'm having to work a lot on my self-esteem because I'm training these enormous stars with really important roles, how to make their performances even better. And they're already fantastic. They could do without me, but I've been hired for a reason, so I need to do my reason. And I have found I've had to work on my self-esteem because I think that period after drama school really impacted me negatively, to be honest. But also it was important. It was important because I had probably grown a lot, but not necessarily, I'd grown a lot as an actor, but not enough in life, if that makes sense. My acting skills were there.
Wow, that's interesting.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of life knocks after graduating that kind of brought me down a lot, which was very sad for me at the time, but I think is probably been the making of me, that I've had to eat humble pie a lot. And I think that's important for actors. I think it's important to not always assume that you're going to get offered a lead role or that you're going to get straight onto STC. unfortunately, it does happen with some people. So I don't want to say, that's okay. If it happens for you, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've had
Can't
friends.
complain if it
Yeah,
does.
exactly. I've got friends who are hugely famous, and I'm so excited for them. I mean, honestly, some of my friends have worked with amazing people overseas, and I'm like, wow. You can still be, and I think that's another thing I want to talk about is it's really important to be happy for your friends. One of my probably my closest friend at acting school has won an Oscar. And
Wow.
yes, but not as an actor. He ended up not going into acting, but he ended up producing, and he produced a film called Manchester by the Sea.
Heard of it. I need to watch that though.
Yeah, and it stars Michelle Williams and Casey Affleck. I was going to say Casey Affleck. And written by Kenneth Lonergan, and Kenneth Lonergan won an Oscar for his screenplay. And I believe, or maybe he didn't actually win the Oscar. Maybe the screenplay won the Oscar for Best Screenplay, but I think they were nominated for Best Film. I don't think they won it that year. Anyway, it was an award-winning film, and it won lots of other awards. And I could not be prouder of him. There's no... And also, I'm not calling him up asking him for favors, right? I'm in a totally different league, and he's in a much more Hollywood league than. Do you know what I mean? I'm in Sydney. It's not. I think it's important to be happy for your friends because it's good for your heart not to hold on to. Different people have different paths. I've seen some people be so successful all of a sudden and then they disappear. It was too easy and they don't care anymore and they give it all away. Wow. So sometimes those people who, get that first STC job or, go on that big international film circuit for a couple of years, they get burnt out or they don't really want it, or when they get it, they realize it's not really what they wanted. So I think the slow burn, I highly recommend the slow burn. I'm on the slow burn.
That makes sense. Yeah, I saw some video. I don't know. It was like some YouTube video of a multi-millionaire girl, but she was in her 20s, and she said that she realized once she got what she thought she wanted, she didn't really want it anymore. And then she dropped her whole company and just kind of wanted a different lifestyle, really, which is so interesting.
It's amazing. I mean, money can make things better for people.
Yeah.
But also having no money is a very interesting exercise because you really get good at deciding what you actually need. You're saying that like an actor that's currently in acting school. What's your experience?
Oh, no, I was just thinking about, like a spirit of generosity and I don't know, I think I've when I've had less students or when I've had more students, and then just, I don't know how frivolous you can get it. Just, I'll just buy that because I can, or then being like, I can be more creative about how I cook my food this week, or like things like that, And then also, I don't know, I think obviously, at any stage where you're at, being able to, generously, either whether it's your time or, buying something for someone or a whole variety of things. But it's kind of not like, this is also a random tangent.
No, it's great.
Not if if you're, really successful or have a lot to give, you can just kind of be where you're at and still be able to contribute or give in different kinds of capacity, I think.
Yeah. Try not to cut all your friends off who helped you along the way. Yeah. That's another thing, isn't it? I mean, I guess, friendships change and emerge and, divert just because of life. So sometimes things do change. When I became a mum, it was very hard for me to keep up my previous social engagements. So that changes things for anyone who becomes a parent, I think. Unless all your friends are having kids at the same time. And I do know some friends who've just done that together. It is kind of cute, yeah. But that's not everybody, so it is hard, isn't it?
I've got to ask out of curiosity, what's the ensemble dynamic like at NIDA? Just different acting schools, I wonder what.
Yeah, I think it depends on the year. We have been really lucky with our year group. I feel really blessed by them. We started off with 24 and now we've got 22. So we've lost some, which is really sad.
But that's not too bad. Yeah. I mean, in the old days, it used to be they graduated 12 or 13.
Wow.
Yeah, we started with 24 maybe, and we ended with 13.
Yeah. That's more. That was the old way. Yeah.
Wow.
So you've still got 22. That's 22. Still good. I know what you mean though, because especially when you make close friends with people, it feels hard when they leave.
Yeah. I think everybody really looks out for each other, which is great. I do feel like it can be a bit insular at times, but I think that's just the style of NIDA and the training. Like you literally spend the 3 years there, like 8 to 6 in the building at a minimum. So actually I think having external friends or people that you know is really important, because otherwise you can get a bit like, you know, clipped in and then you're like, oh, like, do I have a life outside of this? And I think that's, I was just saying to Felicity earlier when she came in that coming into the end of the training, it becomes less intense in ways in that you have more free time. And so I've really found in that spare time I've had to, you know, lean on friends outside of NIDA, because eventually that, like you carry those people, I think, past graduation. But yeah, it's kind of nice to remember that there's people outside of the building as well that you can call on. Yeah.
It does sometimes feel like there's no one else in existence. I remember that. I think that's why I was so depressed when I moved back to Sydney, because I did miss everyone so much. In fact, one of the girls is still in touch with me all the time. We WhatsApp, and my son met her in LA last year because my son went to LA with his dad, and she was desperate to meet my son, and so she met him. And yeah, she's one of my dear friends, Shaylin Zanotti. She's still going out at the LA thing. But I think it is hard. You won't keep in contact with absolutely everyone. But surprisingly, the bond is always there. So I think you can pick up mostly you can pick up exactly where you left off.
I had this experience last night. I was out having drinks and stuff, and then I caught the train and I was like, oh, I'm going to be on the train by myself in the dark. And I get to Redfern and I look across at the platform and I see Peter, who was in my ensemble, and he also does his own podcast here with Brittany. And we just sat on the train and we were going to a similar station. So we just had this whole catch up, but it was just like, it was no time had really passed sort of.
It was like you just left class 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and he was just updating me on his week, and it's
so
really
great, isn't it?
nice
Because it's like a shorthand. You know what you know who he is so well. He knows who you are.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a nice thing. Like a friend of mine, also from acting school, Greg. He and I sometimes see each other in different cities. He's travelled a lot to Australia and to London. So when I was in different places, he'd come and see me. I went back to New York. You know, like, and those friendships are so precious to me, and I don't speak to them every day, but they're very precious friendships, and it's because of that thing that you're talking about, where they just know you've been through. I mean, really, some of the things that you go through in drama school, you know, because all of your stuff is exposed, isn't it? All of your stuff, and so all of your weak points, all of your annoying traits, all of that stuff is exposed, and all of your good side too. But the vulnerability of it is pretty gruesome at times.
Do you guys find that from other shows that you've done that aren't acting school related, that you also have that connection with people you did a show with? Or is it less
Yes,
on shows?
yes, certain shows.
Yeah.
Yeah? Certain shows, like Lion King, you know, was one of them. Yeah, there's a number of shows, Henry V, that I did many years ago. The Henry V cast, there was something magic that Antoinette Blaxland did with us, and I don't know what it was, but she waved her magic wand and it was a special group of people, and we were forever bonded. And and if it's somebody from Henry V, it's something about that production. So I think certain productions, not everyone, but certain. What about you guys?
I think I haven't done a lot of productions outside of NIDA, only like really high school stuff. So I can't really speak to that, but I do know that there are some productions that just kind of feel like magic, and you bond even closer. So when we did our June-July production season, the 22 of us that were left get split up into different shows. And so we had Darren Yap direct, Kelly Abbey was the choreographer, and Andrew Bevis was the musical director. And they, as like a leadership team, they were just incredible. Like, it was such a supportive room, and I think if we got the same cast and those 3 leaders back together again, it would just be like, just hit it straight back off again. So yeah, it's really exciting, I guess, looking in like ahead at how instantly you can kind of connect with people. That was over about a 6-week rehearsal period. So yeah, it's really special.
I think I had it with my first musical ever when I was 12, and I did Annie, and myself and another girl, Abby, shared the role of Annie. So it was like we split the role, and I think she's in London now studying opera, but we're still very close, and we hardly ever see each other, even since we were 12. But whenever we've had like, oh, you're in Sydney, and let's catch up, and just that couple of hours together, stuff like that. Even if it's just one person, I feel like shows are a really good place to get that.
Definitely. It's beautiful.
I wanted to ask, so we kind of touched on it, but you said that because you've worked in the UK, you've worked and studied in America, what's the kind of difference in creative people in those countries, if that makes sense? Just personality-wise maybe, or I don't know if there is a big difference. I don't know, have you been to other countries?
Felicity will be able to speak to this better than I am able to.
But have you gone to anywhere?
I have done exchange, but not worked.
Where did you do your exchange?
I did it in Italy. It was
Italiano.
a different. So before I studied at NIDA, I did a Bachelor of Music.
Wow.
It was when I went over, I was doing ESL, kind of teaching and learning Italian as a language. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Dakota, you have so many skills, so many talents. So differences in cultural, to do with acting training methodologies, or to do with
Or just the personalities
creativity.
of people trying to be their creative selves and, market themselves and exist in a creative world.
I mean, it's a while since I lived in New York, so I can't speak to it for today, but for the time that I was there, the thing that I remember most was that I would sit up the back of the classroom and wait for everybody else to have a turn, and I'll just watch. And if I did that too much, I wouldn't get a go. And I had this attitude of, just let everybody else have a go, and I don't want to, take up too much space, and, I'll just be up the back. And what I realized that the New Yorkers were very good at was standing up for themselves. I'm still not very good at it, but I had to become good at it. Otherwise it didn't work. And I was paying for training, and I was living over there, and I was making a lot of personal sacrifices not to see friends and family. So I realized that I needed to, and when I say stand up for myself, I'm not saying having conflict, but I'm saying just literally saying, who's going to have a turn? I'll have it. I found that hard. I found that really hard, and that was a cultural thing. I also found the feedback interesting in New York, very positive. Constructive still as well, and notes, you still got notes, but it was very positive. It was very affirming. It was very, you've done the work. It's actually closer to how we train actors now, actually how I trained then. Wow. So I really appreciated that, especially because of my upbringing being much more sort of anglicised, and I really appreciated being pushed in that direction. So it was a lot of growth for me as a person in terms of having to grow into that. Okay, I can step up. I can say I can do this. I might not do it perfectly, but I'm going to try my best, rather than, I can't do it perfectly, so I'm not going to try, which was I've kind of reverted to that now. So that's that. And then I spent a lot of time in France and also New Zealand. Wow. I lived in London for nearly a decade. London is interesting because London, if you work hard and you put the seed work in, it will come back to you. So I really appreciated London because I'm a worker bee. So when I plant those seeds, they come back to you, and they might not come back straight away, but they'll all come back to you. And so I planted a lot of seeds with a lot of different production companies, did a lot of voiceovers for a lot of companies that weren't very cachet or cool. But, I started building my network and building my base. So that was very interesting because I think London suited that part of me that was quite anglicised. In Australia, I found it difficult because I couldn't quite figure it out. Sometimes it felt like a popularity contest rather than a skill contest. So I found that frustrating. But I think also what it was for me is that I was very much a worker bee. And so I think sometimes I didn't bring enough joy to my work. And I think I've learnt that now. I think as a younger actor, I just took everything so seriously. Everything was serious. And because I took it seriously. But Judi Dench talks about that, doesn't she? She says, take your work seriously, but not yourself. So that's been a good lesson for me, I try and keep it light now, because I think when I first started teaching, I just taught with New York gung-ho attitude plus my own determination from my own family line, this kind of, once we're focused, we're 100% focused. And that was New York. So I think it was too intense. I think it was its own brand of too much. And so I think what I've learnt is I can still be serious about my craft, and I can still be dedicated and hardworking, but that I can have fun with it. So I think that's kind of where Australia's landing now, is a nice balance. I think Australia has that overseas methodology right now. I think initially I think we have to do some of the American methodology of you can do this and positive thinking, and I think that's good for actors, because it doesn't help if you're constantly criticized. It's not to say that you don't deserve notes. Every actor, we all need notes all the time. But if all you're getting is notes that are critical, then you don't enjoy the moment and you don't connect and you don't feel open. Your heart isn't open. So that's where I'm really fascinated by the psychological intimacy stuff of finding a place where the actors feel good about themselves so that then they can do the work. So I think we've landed at a good place in Australia, but I think it's got a lot of influences from America now, which are positive, and a lot of influences from Britain, which are positive. And Americans and British know it, that if they get a gung-ho singer like Dakota in their musical, they know she's going to just go for it and be you know what I mean? I think we do have a good reputation like that generally.
That's good.
Yeah. That's a very long answer.
No, I would also love to hear your Italy experience, because this podcast is also music. I don't do a lot of it, but I love hearing about music experiences. So, yeah, what was Italy like?
Yeah. Wow, I didn't think this would come up, but now it has. So, yes, I grew up playing the cello, and I have always sung in choirs. And I think that's kind of how my intro into the arts happened, was that I sang in school choirs, different choirs. And then
sorry, I think there's like from the desk.
From the table? Oh, oops. Sang in school choirs, and then did school musicals and things like that. And so when I finished high school, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew it would be arts related in some capacity. So I just auditioned for Sydney Con, Queensland Con, NIDA, VCA, like all the drama schools and music schools, because I had different sorts of skills in music and performing arts. Anyhow, NIDA was always the dream school. It was like the top of the bucket list of all schools. But I didn't get in, and I didn't get in when I auditioned again. And then it was my third go that I was accepted. That was a long time down the track.
Congrats on like persevering through that. That's a lot.
Did you do 3 years in a row? Or?
No, my first one was 2016. That was my first audition. And then again in 2020, and then 2019. And then I did another one 2021.
And
was
that was the one you
accepted
got in?
2022.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like over a 7-ish year period that it kind of happened. So, so the reason for that was, so when I graduated from high school, I went to uni in Queensland at the Queensland Conservatorium, and I did classical voice and opera there. And I did that because I love music, but I never saw myself as like an opera singer or doing opera. It was mostly just because I love singing and I love theatre. And yeah, that was a really cool program. We did do a bit of phonetics for language. So our language training was in French, German and Italian.
Wow.
And we did about a semester of each, and then like intense study. And then in your lessons and different classes, you'd always kind of be singing in those 3 languages and English. And yeah, Italy that was a really cool exchange. So I went to Sardinia, which is a little island just off Italy, and I stayed at the boarding school, and then on the weekends would do like a homestay with different families.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I'd been to the Baltic states before for a music tour, but that was with Gondwana choirs. But it was my first time having an extended period overseas by myself. So that was, it was really cool. And yeah, I had a really nice time. And then after the exchange had finished, I did like the main cities, Milan, Florence and Rome. So yeah, it was a cool time. I was mostly working with high school students. So I think the work ethic is they're very studious, but they also have like this kind of relaxed culture. So they'd finish school at like 2 p.m. and then have the afternoon free. But then, yeah, I think they had a really good balance of like socializing with each other, but then also being really studious. Yeah. Yeah. And they were really interested in learning English, so they were kind of always asking me questions and wanted extra help when I was available. So, yeah. I think it would be interesting to hear about your work with voiceover work, Felicity, and I guess kind of how you got into that once just your voiceover work as an artist, yeah. Because we've heard you talk a lot about your coaching, but it's to hear from the artist. Yeah, because you've
true.
done some really cool stuff.
I love
we
stuff.
we learned, like, I feel like over that semester that we had you, I learned a lot about the industry and that kind of thing.
I guess I have. I guess it's so different than working in a visual industry because nobody really sees your work, and often you're working in the background of things. And so, I mean, I've done all sorts of jobs. I've even done things like I sometimes did like narration as a hold for the lead actress. So, for example, I worked on this one film, and I did all of the narration for this big film. But I knew when I was doing it that they weren't going to use my voice. So I had to do it in the style of another actress because she wasn't available. She was on tour and they had to edit the film to meet the deadline. So I have been asked to do so I get unusual jobs like that sometimes that I can't really talk about and I can't tell people about. And also I can't show anyone because I'm not really part of the final cut, but it's still valid work. So sometimes I do things like that. I've done quite a lot of dubbing and ADR work in London. I worked on a lot of British Australian co-productions where you were required to have multi-accent voicing and things like that. That was very interesting. I really liked that. I did some training at Warner Brothers at Delay Lane and worked with the sound engineers there and really loved that. That was amazing. Got to work with some incredible actors. One actor who I learned a lot from in voiceovers, I think I talked to you guys about him, Roger May. And he and his wife and his daughter all are voiceover artists. And Roger, just by watching him, was a masterclass. And so I used to just watch him and watch what he was doing. And I just do everything Roger did. And then I might ask him one question per session because I did a lot of work opposite Roger. So I'd just be watching and listening. His breathing technique was really what I've copied mostly. I'm not as good as Roger, but I do try. And then the other things that I don't know, did you want to ask about particular, there's so many different types of jobs.
I mean, there is, I remember you saying about like, you know, you might do like a perfume ad one day and then the next day you've got a whole audio book, which, and you just, I think, well, that really took me by surprise is that, I guess there's so many different avenues and that kind of thing.
Well, this morning, I actually did a voiceover job this morning from my home studio because some studios, once they know you and once they trust you, they'll give you a homework job to do. So where you're directing yourself and you just send in different options. It's not often, but occasionally. So I had that for one of the radio clients that trusts me for a big radio station in WA. I do a lot of Western Australian TV. I don't know why. It's something about my voice. And they asked me to be a 60-year-old. So I had to do that this morning.
Can I get a demo on the 60-year-old? Or is that like asking someone to do the splits?
It's like asking someone to do the splits. Well, shall I read this book? I'll read the chapter of this book.
Please, yeah.
Question 7. Richard Flanagan. Opening this book was a problem for me. But then when I got to page 26, I realised that it was time to put it back in the bookcase. How's that?
Yeah.
Would you buy that?
I would buy it.
And then the other week, I played a dog in an animation.
Oh my goodness.
And I had to do 27 different versions of a bark.
Can we hear it?
Yes, I do a really good dog.
Whoa!
Fantastic.
Etc., etc. And I do different types of dogs. So I've done a lot of that kind of. I've done a lot of weird stuff.
If you're listening to the podcast without the visual, you will see that it is literally voice acting. Like Felicity's using her. Yeah,
I'm using my whole. That's something
Yeah.
you use your whole body. So it's true what you say, Dakota.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll go in. And while I was teaching you guys, I was doing a really long audio book in British accent. So I did the whole book in British accent. And it was a really intense book. It was a non-fiction, but it was a history. And it was very detailed. And I had to do a lot of prep. And it was a particular type of British accents. I had to be really in the zone and really focused. It was a hard book, but did that. That was fine. And then in between that, I'm also doing like silly auditions for TV commercials. And then I've got, you know, an audition for a TV show. And then I'm coaching someone. I'm doing ADR coaching for someone on a film. So my days are very interesting. So even today on a Sunday, I had an audition for a TV commercial, a voiceover job, and I've got an audition for an audio book tonight that I've got to do when I get home.
And this podcast.
Wow. But this is not work. For me, there's not, you see gorgeous Jasmine on your podcast. And I got such a surprise when I saw Dakota. I was like, I only know one Dakota. It's got to be Dakota Love.
Also, what a cool name. I haven't addressed that. You probably hear that all the time. That's a cool name.
I do feel lucky.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. And thank you for coming so last minute as well. And I'm so glad when I randomly walked past you and asked you to do this one day that you said yes. I was so excited.
Well, I had actually noticed, I think, in Gen X, we notice when people are very front foot forward creating their own stuff. And I've noticed that about you, Jazz. And I just that's really inspiring. I always want to support people who do that because that's kind of how, you create and morph your own path. And, eventually you'll get somewhere else and you'll be like, oh, well, I'm not doing that anymore. But you're making a difference for other people too. You're having conversations and inspiring people. Gorgeous, Jasmine.
Thank you so much. And on that note, everybody, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. You can follow Felicity and Dakota. I'll put the links down below. And see you guys next episode. Also, don't forget to check out our website if you'd like to be a guest. I'll link that below as well, but you can apply for whoever comes in the next few months. And I'll see you around.
I
Bye.
think I need to do one more take of this.
No, you do. You do. That's a good way to end.
Question 7, Richard Flanagan. And I shall turn to page 26 and read all about that. H.G. Wells and Rebecca West. In front of the bookcase, they now pause and stare for a moment at each other. Is that better? That was a bit better, wasn't it?
That was great.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. The work is never finished, so I cannot leave that alone. I've got to go and correct it.
Yeah, oh gosh.
How
so you're
annoying.
going to go...
No, I'm just saying.
this.
Oh yeah, and I did. No,
that
sometimes I do
On the
like
podcast.
17 takes, and then I spend the next hour. I've had to get better at that. That's a good note. I got a good note from a girlfriend of mine who's a very established actress, and she said, I just do my auditions now. I decide what I'm doing, I rehearse what I'm doing, and then I do 4 takes, and I choose the best 2. She said, once I've done 4 takes, I'm not going to get largely different, and I'm trying to take that advice. You probably
that would be very time saving.
Yeah, but you've got to think about what you're doing before you start. Look at me, I'm breaking the furniture.
Yes. Bye, everybody.